What's up guys, Sio here with week 4 of the PU Battleground. This week we are taking on EpsilonNot, coach of the Magnemighty. We've only battled once on the channel before, so we don't really have like a super extensive history on the channel, but we've been practicing a bunch and stuff, so we tend to kind of play each other a lot. And he actually has a really interesting team for my team, basically. So this is actually going to be a pretty close battle, I think. I tried to be a little bit more standard, quote-unquote, with my sets this week compared to last week. Just kind of trying to take a step back and not be like as wild with my team building all the time. So while the sets aren't really super imaginative this week, I think they do actually do a decent amount of work. So first up, obviously we got Steelix. Fun fact, by the way, since you guys probably aren't paying attention to the doc, Steelix, as of this battle, is actually second in the MVP race, which is kind of ridiculous. It ends up, I'm not really sure what it's at this point in the season, since I'm actually recording this 2 weeks late, but it's basically been like first or second throughout the entire MVP race for the PU Battleground, which is kind of ridiculous because Steelix isn't really offensive at all. It just kind of keeps staying alive and killing stuff, which is kind of cool. So this week it's Leftover, Sturdy with Stealth Rock, Earthquake, Protect, and Heavy Slam. Heavy Slam's obviously mostly for Deancy, which he did bring, which is kind of cool. And then Earthquake kind of just hits whatever else. I don't really have an answer for Alolan and Exeggutor on this team, but I'll figure that out with other stuff. Next up is Slurpuff with Citrus Berry, Unburden, with Belly Drum, Play Rough, Drain Punch, Facade. Max attack, max speed, pretty standard Belly Drum, Slurpuff, I guess. I guess the only thing that's somewhat different about it is that I brought Facade over like Return or something, but I figured you could probably try to Will-O-Wisp me with something like Shedinja or Moltres even, I guess. Or just try to go for Toxic, I guess. I don't think Toxic would be the play, but if he tries to burn me, that's the main reason I brought it. Next up is Alomomola with a Regenerator and an Eject button. If you don't know, an eject button is basically an item that basically once you take a hit, you just are forced out immediately. It's kind of like Golisopod's ability, but it's a little bit easier to control because you don't have to drop below 50%, and you can kind of control it a little bit better. And this works well with Regenerator because basically you just get hit by a Regenerator pivot and then switch out into something that you actually want to switch out into. And Alomomola recovers 30% of its health while you get a switch into something that you actually want. So it's kind of nice. The set's just pretty standard: Wish, Scald, Toxic, Protect, max HP, max defense, full stall for that, basically. Aloe doesn't really have very good attack, so it kind of ends up being stalling most weeks anyway. Next up is Blaziken, Choice Scarf, Blaze. It's actually special, so it's kind of mixed, I guess, this week, with Vacuum Wave, Flamethrower, Rock Slide, and Earthquake. Vacuum Wave was for something, and I don't think it was something that he actually brought. I think it was mostly from Magneton, actually. But it does also at least hit Metagross neutrally, and hits Deancy neutrally, but doesn't really do very much. But basically between Flamethrower, Rock Slide, and Earthquake, I can actually pretty much hit most of this team anyway. So Vacuum Wave is kind of like a nice surprise, like you think you outspeed my Scarfer, but you actually don't kind of move, I guess. Next up is Archeops, which actually probably has the coolest set this week. It has U-Turn, Earthquake, Rock Slide, and Shadow Claw, and I'm actually bringing Ghost DMZ this week, because I just noticed he actually kind of has a decent amount of Ghost weakness in his team, and I mean even in this roster, Shedinja and Metagross especially don't really appreciate Z Shadow Claw at all. Shedinja doesn't appreciate anything that's Ghost type, obviously, but Metagross doesn't really like it either, which is kind of nice. Which is also kind of nice because I don't think it actually dies from Earthquake, so I think I actually need the damage boost. But overall it's just a good neutral attack because I don't think he actually has a normal type. Yeah, he doesn't have a normal type, so I basically just get to hit something on his team with a Z Shadow Claw. And then finally we have Alolan Persian making its season debut. It has Fur Coat and Rocky Helmet this week with Parting Shot, Foul Play, Play Rough, and Fake Out. Kind of weird to run like a physical Alolan version, I guess, since most of its good sets are special. But I figured with Rocky Helmet, Fur Coat, I could actually take a pretty decent amount of hits, pivot around with Aloe and try to wish it back up, and then basically just go for foul play to hit all of his stuff that would be weak to dark types, because a lot of the stuff that he has weak to dark types is also not really appreciating a foul play at all. And then play rough was basically for Hariyama, and fake out's just there for chip, I guess, but just kind of standard damage, I guess. So he brought Hariyama, DNC, Moltres, which is super fucking scary by the way, Shedinja, LL1 Executor, and Metagross. He also left behind Magneton, Cryogonal, Whirlipede, Claydol, Wailord, and Oricorio, who we just bundle as one Pokemon even though it's like 4, I guess. So starting off, I noticed that his hazard removal isn't really the best. I feel like I've said that kind of most weeks to start off, but especially with a Moltres on the field and a Shedinja who just dies instantly to Stealth Rocks, I need to get him up as soon as possible. So I'm just going to go Steelix as he leads Shedinja, which is a good play on his part, because if he led anything else and I got Rocks up, it basically just died the second it switched in. Unless he has Moltres Defog, which, as I said last week with Talonflame, Fire Flying is not really a good type for defogging. So I actually don't really want to stay in here because I don't want to get burned, and I think he has Will-O-Wisp. He shows Agility, which is kind of scary. So even though I said I didn't want to stay in, I'm willing to risk it just because it seems like it's a fairly risky play for him to go to Willow turn 1 when I have a Fire type here, especially a Fire type that just hits with Flamethrower pretty much. So now that I see that he's Agility and he's probably an Agility passing one, I kind of wish that I had Roar. But I'm just going to go Persian because it kind of counters everything, and fun fact, it actually outspeeds both Hariyama and Shedinja even after an Agility. So I'm actually still feeling pretty good here. With Fur Coat, I should be able to take an attack here. If he's Guts, then I obviously won't, but as you can see from the turn passing, he's not actually Guts. Which shows that he's probably Sheer Force. I don't really know why he would run Thick Fat this week, I guess. It's possible, I guess, if he wants to switch to Blaziken, but Sheer Force seems like it makes a little bit more sense. So I'm just going to go for Play Rough here, because the Play Rough actually should kill, surprisingly, after the Fake Out damage, of course. Unfortunately I miss, because I don't have luck with 90% moves, and he goes for a fucking Belly Drum, which is terrifying, because basically if he just starts bullet punching, he kills at least Slurpuff and Archeops very easily, and then he can just kind of close combat the rest of my team. So absolutely need this Play Rough to land. Thankfully Bullet Punch doesn't actually do very much to Persian, because it's Fur Coat and Rocky Helmet. Persian gets its first kill of the season, which is nice, and picks it up. And in comes Moltres, which is pretty terrifying. Epsilon was telling me during the battle that he actually wasn't really expecting to have to switch into Hariyama with his agility, which is kind of cool. I think he was more intending to go to Metagross and just kind of tear shit apart of my team. But because I went to Persian on that one turn, he wasn't really feeling comfortable going into Metagross, since I could pretty much OHKO with a foul play. So it was kind of nice that I managed to dodge his super scary Shedinja setup. Unfortunately, super scary Moltres is in, so I kind of just have to parting shot out and go into my pivot. Figure this is decent enough time to use my eject button. He actually is defog Moltres, which I think is kind of funny. I know I was kind of shit talking it earlier in the game, but it still gets the job done. I think he actually EV'd his Moltres slightly incorrectly though, because it should have had an odd amount of HP so it could switch into Rocks twice instead of once, but minor criticism, I guess. So I'm just going to stay in and go for a Toxic or something, because there's no real reason for me not to. He sees my eject button, which I guess I'm fine with. Like, it's not really the end of the world that he knows that I have an eject button. It's not like it's like him finding out my Z move or something. So I'm just going to double into Persian and get it back up to health, because clearly I need it for Metagross, and I probably need it for other stuff as well. So he goes for Trick Room here, and I don't really have the best answers for Trick Room, especially since the level 1 Executor is a pretty good user of Trick Room itself. So I'm just going to stall it out, I guess. It seems kind of weird, but I can just fake out and then go into Alomomola on the Dragon Pulse, get eject buttoned out into something else, and then just fake out again, basically. I didn't exactly have the best counter for Trick Room. So at this point, since Alomomola isn't really doing anything, like it kind of walls Moltres, but it also kind of doesn't, because if Moltres just sets up in its face, it's kind of over. And because I was so passive, the only thing I could really do to anyone was Toxic. And I guess try to heal stuff back up, but it wasn't really looking like it was super useful here. So I decided that Aloe was kind of the most useless member of my team at this point. Sack it off. Trick Room's over, so I actually get an opportunity to attack. So I'm just going to go Slurpuff because I know he has to go into his Slurpuff counter right here. He could also try to Trick Room in my face, but he knows me well enough to know that I'll just play rough and kill this thing. So I make a double here because I figured he was going to switch out. Unfortunately, he just goes straight for the Sludge Bomb, which is kind of annoying. I'm pretty sure Play Rough would have wiped this thing out, but I kind of expected him to go either Moltres or Metagross there to try to counter me. I especially expected Metagross because he basically just switches in as I Belly Drum, and then he just bullet punches and kills me, basically. So him bringing Sludge Bomb was a good call on his part, because now I have a Poison Scarf Blaziken, which doesn't really do anything. So I might as well try to do some damage, I guess. As every other Shedinja in the world is, he's sashed, so whatever. I'm just going to stay in and do damage, I guess, while I still can. I don't really have a big need for Blaziken this week, because the team he brought didn't really need Scarf Blaziken that much. But now Steelix is in, and I can either get Rocks up again, or just go for a Heavy Slam, depending on what I'm feeling. Since he brings in Moltres hard, I just decided to go for that, because I don't want to get burned. I know I'm playing kind of aggressively with the Steelix, but after he didn't burn me with Shedinja on turn 1, I kind of figured he probably didn't have Will-O-Wisp this week, because Shedinja is normally the one to run Will-O-Wisp, and it seems like it's an agility passing set. And Moltres typically can run Will-O-Wisp, unless it's like a defensive Flame Body set. And since he's pressure, he's probably just a little bit more of a specially offensive one, I would guess. So I don't really have a switch into this. So I guess I'm going to go Archeops, predicting his Roost. Like, I have to be kind of aggressive here because everything else on my team that's alive still is pretty physically defensive and not specially defensive. And if you haven't faced a Moltres before, it's actually pretty terrifying. It's tier 4 in our league, but I think that's slightly undervalued, seeing as how Talonflame is also tier 4. And I would draft Moltres over Talonflame like 100 times over, I guess. But basically, because Moltres has the same like basic stats as like Zapdos and stuff like that, it's actually pretty hard to take down in one hit. So I have to go hard Archeops here and threaten out with like a Rock Slide or something. Obviously he makes the right switch and just goes Exeggutor. He finally finds my Ghost DMZ, but I guess doesn't really matter. I was pretty surprised that he actually went Metagross here, because I'm pretty sure even if he bullet punched me, I would still be able to do pretty significant damage with a Ghost DMZ Shadow Claw. Even if he knocks me into Defeatist, which he probably would. But surprisingly he doesn't, even though he just saw my Z move, and I'm able to wipe out Metagross, which is super nice, because fuck Metagross. So Archeops comes in and gets 2 quick kills, which is pretty cool. I'm not sure if he didn't actually know that my Ghost DMZ would be an offensive Ghost DMZ, because I mean, honestly, I've never really seen an Archeops with Shadow Claw before either, so I didn't even really know it got it until I was like looking through its coverage. But now Archeops doesn't really do very much. Like, it outspeeds Moltres, I guess. But I also don't really have the best switch into this. In hindsight, I probably should have just doubled into Steelix here, but I was kind of expecting that Earthquake to do a little bit more than it did. So now Archeops is kind of useless, I guess, and I go Steelix anyway. He tries to Calm Mind in my face, but I have Heavy Slam, so it doesn't really matter at all. He makes a good smart play and goes for late game Rocks, though, because that means that Archeops is not coming back in without dying, basically. And basically he's forced to go Moltres here, because if he goes Shedinja, it just instantly dies to Rocks, because it only has 1 HP. So he's forced to go Moltres, take 50%, and here I actually make a pretty big misplay. Like, it's pretty obvious he's going to go for a Roost, but I instead predict him to go for Defog to try to get... I predict him to try to go for Defog straight up, because I wanted him to potentially go for Defog to try to get Shedinja back in. So I go for a Heavy Slam there. Obviously it doesn't work, so I kind of just have to sack Archeops to get into the thing that might actually help me here. And he shows Heat Wave, which is annoying because Heat Wave has a high chance to burn as well as doing a lot of damage. So I basically just have to kind of parting shot and weaken this thing so the rest of my team can actually take it. Fake Out's not doing anything, especially since he has leftovers, so I'm just going to try to Fake Out spam here, and basically just pivot back and forth between Steelix and Persian to try to weaken this thing enough, to the point where Slurpuff can come in and at least set up a Belly Drum and try to do stuff. As you can see, I'm not taking Heat Waves well at all, so this is going to take like 2 or 3 parting shots in order for me to actually like feel comfortable here. I have to switch right back out. Unfortunately, he makes an amazing play and sacks Shedinja there as I try to protect. So because he sacked Shedinja and came back into Moltres, he's back up to neutral, which basically means that he kills here, which is terrifying to me, because all I have left is a half health Steelix, which will drop, as we saw, to Heat Wave, because it almost would have been 2 KO'd by a -2 Heat Wave, so the fact that Moltres is back up is good for him. Persian only has like 1 hit left as well, and my Slurpuff coverage is lacking, to say the least. Like, I now have 2 hits on this thing that are resisted, and then an unboosted Facade, which isn't going to kill. And to complicate things, I actually make another bad play, because in hindsight, the Roost here was super obvious, because he wants to get back up to full. So I really should have Earthquaked here. Instead I Heavy Slammed for some reason. The second after that turn was over, I was like, why the fuck did I Heavy Slam when Earthquake would have guaranteed just wiped this thing out? And would have been a pretty solid 3-0 win, I guess. Because I didn't, I now have no way to deal with this Moltres properly. So I'm just going to protect and try to get back up to health, and at this point I have to hope he misses a Heat Wave. He doesn't, obviously. Steelix drops, and then I'm basically just forced to go Persian. I actually don't want a parting shot here, even though it would make Heat Wave lessened, because a -1 Heat Wave is still a 2-hit KO on Slurpuff. And I don't want to parting shot directly into it and have it take it, pretty much, because I need to have Slurpuff on a clean switch, so I can Belly Drum, so I can hope he basically misses Heat Wave at this point, and then hope that Facade is able to pick it off. So I'm just going to try to basically just stay in and sack Persian, at least get a little bit of damage off with Foul Play. Obviously this is especially offensive Moltres, but because its base stats are high enough, it actually does a decent amount. And at this point I have to have just like a last ditch Belly Drum, hope that I'm able to live whatever he goes for, and then just kill. So I go for the Belly Drum, get the 4 times attack, get the Citrus boost, he goes for Heat Wave, I end up living, and he burns me, which is fucking amazing. Like, there's no way I could have actually hoped for him to get, like, a burn, but not kill me with the burn, because I didn't really EV Slurpuff in any way, shape, or form to be able to take a Heat Wave. Like, most of the time when something like this happens, I'm pretty, like, proud, because I'm like, yeah, I EV'd that right, but no, this is complete accident. So, because I Belly Drummed, and I got burned, everyone in the chat's like, oh, this game's over, GG. And I mean, it is over, but not for the way that he expects, because I do have Facade, and with the burn, I'm able to ignore the burn, get a base 140 attack Facade, and actually manage to OHKO. Crazy battle. So good game, Epsilon. Personally, I feel like there are a couple of things that I could have done to kind of make that a little bit easier on myself and not have to rely on Heat Wave hitting, but not killing, but burning, but the burn didn't kill either. I definitely didn't set that game up as easily as I could have for myself, but I think it made it for a little bit more exciting of a battle. So great battle. I'm super excited to put this one on the channel, actually, because the ending for that game is pretty amazing, I think. And overall it was a fun game. I didn't really play around Moltres as well as I should have, given how scary of a threat it was, but that's okay, I guess. Lesson learned for next time. So next week we take on the Seattle Wingles, coached by Super Nerd 92. He and I have had a pretty extensive history on the channel. He was originally like an assistant coach when I was like way back in season 1, and then he was one of the first people to like join this league with us, and has been a coach ever since. So we know each other's battle style very, very, very well, so it should be a pretty fun game. If you guys like this battle, go ahead and drop a like and subscribe. If there are a couple of sets you want to see, the PU Battleground is only going on for another couple of weeks, because Season 4 of the NES is starting on January 20th, so not this upcoming Saturday, not the one after that, but the one after that, I guess. So stay hyped for that. I'll be trying to post a little bit more about that as it gets a little bit closer. We're still finalizing tiers and stuff, so I don't want to post anything quite yet, but it is coming soon. So thank you guys for coming, and have a good one. Bye.